All right. So, coming off of a bye week, and it gets it's typical, Sun Belt Conference. It gets tougher every week, So you're getting ready to play a really good, really well-rounded Georgia State football team. Um, obviously offensively is kind of what everyone's talking about, and they've got a well-built offense. They've got really good skill on the outside. The running back is playing, lights out right now. Elite contact balance, really tough, but he's got home run ability. And of course, it always starts, I think, with the quarterback play, and the guy's playing great. He's a really effective runner, completing 70% of his throws about, and he's playing really good football, making good decisions up front. They're covering guys up and they're getting movement and they're opening up holes for these guys. I think defensively, they're giving up some yards, but they're great in the red zone. They're top 10 in the red zone and red zone defense this year, which that's the name of the game. Who cares how many yards you give up whenever you get stops? They're holding people to 23 points a game. So they've got a really good football team, special teams. They've always got great speed and really good schemes. So, it's going to take a complete effort this week. Certainly, it's kind of the challenges in this league. Every year every week, I'm sorry, you're going to show up and you're going to have to play really well to have a chance to win. And this week is certainly no different.
Probably the first time y'all faced a quarterback that can run as a weapon, like he can run. They run design runs with him, scrambles well. Just talk about the defensive challenge of a running quarterback who really runs.
Yeah, Old Dominion's guy, I thought kind of had a similar skill set where he could really hurt you with his legs. I think Granger's a little more deliberate, in the way that he runs it. He's I don't want to say he's looking to run, but there are a lot of design runs and zone reads and things like that where he's a real threat and a real option on it. So um, it is difficult, And then on top of that, they will at times spread you out where you got to rally to get there, and the box is a little bit lighter, so it's that they've got a pretty good scheme. You 5-man box it, they lock it. You 6-man box it, they read it. So either way, they've got the advantage there. So you got to find ways to get extra hats to the ball, which is a challenge. But they can tighten it down in there, and they can play smash mouth football too, and they do it, and they've done it well at times too. So there's just a lot of different things they do with them. It's not just traditional zone read. They run speed option. They run quarterback sweep. They run draws. They do everything with them, and they use them in that capacity. And he's really a really effective runner. He's certainly not scared to do it. It kind of looks like he plays best whenever he gets in his rhythm as a runner as well.
Did you get healthier during the bye week? I guess that's not a given.
I don't think I did personally. I think I got worse, but no, yeah, it's always good. You got nicks and bruises and guys that are just kind of banged up, that being able to limit them and making sure that you can control their reps and the quantity of it is always a good thing. Texas State game was really pretty physical. So, we had some guys coming out of it that, would have played last week, but certainly way less than 100%. We're hoping to get Sonny back this week, so we'll start rolling him back into this thing a little bit more. Caleb Anderson's another one that certainly you're hoping you'll be able to get back this week. With being Monday, this will be our first day of practice. Don't know exactly what they look like yet, but you're hopeful for it, and certainly some of those other guys that have just got normal bumps and bruises, that was good for them.
Since you're always focused on week to week, was there anything that surprised you looking back at the first half of the season?
Uh, I don't know if it surprised you so much as, I talked about this team a lot going all the way back to the spring, and what I thought our team could be. And I feel like I've always felt like I knew we had a talented group. I think I knew from the beginning the way that our maturity and how much we could grow up and handle some different things was going to dictate kind of how this season went, and that's a lot of the fun when you have a team that's like that, because you could see it going well and being in a position like we are to go do what we want to do in the second half of the year. But certainly there was a lot of games and situations in there where it could have went the other way and not been exactly what you wanted. So I'm pleased with our team. I think we're a handful of plays away from being 5-1, and you're a handful of plays and a quarter away from being 6-0. So, we're kind of right where I was hoping we would be. You always have guys that step up and not surprise you, but do what you were hoping they would do, and I think our offensive line as a group has performed really well. I was very pleased with that so far. Jacob Cabote certainly has stepped up in a big way. These receivers, we knew Pete and Jake needed to play well, but Rob Williams, who'd never really played a whole lot under the lights, has played really well. Harvey has really flashed at times. Charles Robertson has made some big plays. Neil Johnson's playing well this year, which we needed him to. Terrence Carter has stepped up and playing in a way that we want him to. So, those things are all good. I think defensively, we're playing a lot of guys right now, and our defense this year, I think, is a little bit like our offense last year in that a lot of first-time starters, a lot of guys in new roles that are big roles, and at times they play really good and they look like you want them to look. And there's times where some of that shows up a little bit. So defensively is where I think we got to continue to improve. We got to improve everywhere, but defensively is where I think you'll maybe see the most improvement in the second half of the year. It's where we need to. As those guys settle into their roles and really start to, kind of feel themselves a little bit and say, okay, this is who I am. This is a player I am. It's time to go play like it. So, you're in a good spot at the halfway point, which is all that you can really hope for. You still control your destiny, and that's what you want it to be.
How much of that is what the progress that Justin Agu and Glenn Brown make from here on out, what you're talking about improving on defense?
Yeah, there's no doubt. That's big. You felt really good about Keon and Caleb, and so much so that we were able to move Amir into star where he could play in that role. Agu steps up and plays great for us on Saturday. Glenn is getting better every week after missing pretty much all of fall camp. So those guys need to continue to play better. But it's the whole thing, right? Our defensive line, I think, is playing better as things are going right here throughout this year. They're getting better and better. At linebacker, our communication is really good. I think those guys have played really well all year. At safety, our communication is getting better on the back end, getting everybody lined up and fitting where we're supposed to. You just go back to you take week 2 versus week 6. Against Old Dominion, there were a lot of busts on the back end that you don't necessarily get into it because it is what it is. Just a lot of things that we just didn't do that were very clean in the communication, some of that stuff. And you go to Texas State and there really wasn't that really wasn't the case. They earned what they got. They made good plays on offense. We made them earn it, and we were able to get some stops when you needed to. And that's kind of where we're growing a little bit right there. And I think it's everybody needs to continue to get a little bit better and play a little bit better. But certainly, on the back end with those young safeties and young corners, the more confident they get, the better off we'll be.
Coach, talk about the red zone and just the opportunities there and taking advantage, the importance of taking advantage of those. You got 15 red zone touchdowns so far this year. But talking about their red zone D is pretty impressive. But give me the focus of that of taking advantage of those opportunities.
Well, I think one of the things, a couple of things that we did in the offseason was we looked at our red zone offense and we said, okay, we've got to have a better plan here, and we got to be able to execute a little bit better and score more touchdowns. And we've been able to do that this year. So that's something that, that's an off-season project that you go into and you try to revamp some things and you have a little bit of success, which is a good thing, but 2-minute defense is something that we talked about last year too. And we were able to get turnovers in 2 different games in 2-minute defense that we were able to win games in 1-possession games. So a lot of the things that we put a lot of emphasis on and focus on has showed up. This week, for us offensively, number one, you got to be able to drive the ball, and that's never a given, right? You gotta go execute and play well. And then when you get down there, they mix it up, when you get down in the red zone, and they're very multiple. The way they play coverages, the things that they do, they'll pressure sometimes they don't. And they kind of keep you on your heels a little bit. So we got to be really sound there. With an offense like they have, where they're capable of putting up a lot of points, you really need to cash in when you get down there. And, Troy was able to win a game kicking some field goals early, but it got pretty tight there, in the third quarter and the beginning of the fourth quarter because they weren't able to score touchdowns. So it's absolutely critical that when we get to the red zone, we find a way to go score touchdowns and get in the paint because when we've played some really good offenses this year, and when you miss out on opportunities like that, those things can cost you. So, for us, obviously, points are always good. You always want to take points when you can, but you certainly need to score touchdowns because if it turns into a game where they get a little rhythm on offense and they start scoring touchdowns and they can score from far out there, you got to be matching it touchdown for touchdown, and that's kind of the difference in probably Texas State was they settled for a couple field goals and turned it over on downs, and we were able to score touchdowns when we got down there. Aside from the fumble, obviously, and I think that probably ended up being the difference in the game. So it was kind of the thing that last year, we felt like cost us a couple games, right? You get down there and you settle for 2 or 3 field goals and you lose by 4, and you're sitting around looking like, well, dang, there's a difference in the game. So that this game it's going to be there's not going to be a whole lot of margin for error here. You're going to have to play a good team football game. You have to play with discipline, and you're going to have to cash in on opportunities that you get.
What are some of the things besides taking care of the ball? Obviously, you talked about working on yourself this past week that you hope y'all got better in practice because of emphasis.
Well, every position group has a different set of skills and fundamentals that they need to master to be good at that position, and that's really what we focused on is position by position. Yes, offensively, certainly ball security was a huge emphasis. Quit turning the ball over, and you got a chance to really have a pretty darn good offensive unit here. So we got to do that, and that was a big part of it. But it's just the little things, at quarterback. It's the consistency in the footwork, right, and your eyes starting in the right place every time. Up front, it's running off the ball and making sure you have the right aim point and first, second step in the ground, right? And using your hands on the defensive line. It's using your hands and playing with length and striking defenders. In DB, it's eyes in the right place. It's tightening up your footwork and making sure that, we're in the right stance, right? We have our eyes in the right spot. We're looking at the right things. We're ready to plant and drive. So every position has a different set of skills that you have to continue to develop. And I keep going back to it, but when you have a team like we do, I think that's why you have a chance to continue to get better all years because these guys they're continually learning as they grow. And it's a fun group to work with because, we hooked it up, on Tuesday and Wednesday last week and cut it loose, and they went out there and practiced really well. So we had almost 30 minutes of Indy, on those 2 days. And it was really about, let's make sure that we're continuing to focus on the things that it's not. Georgia State is the next game. That's the one that you want. There's 6 games left, So if you spend all your time on scheming and trying to figure out one team, well, you got 5 more after that. It's really about developing a base and fundamentals that are going to last for the duration of the season. Hopefully, 8 games, right? Not just 6. But that's what you're focusing on is at every position you inventory as a position coach. What do my guys need to do better? What are the things that continually show up? And you take inventory of it, and then you go and you drill it and you work it and you hammer it home, and you get to slow it down and do it in Indy. You get to actually watch the Indy in film sessions because you're not necessarily worried about a game plan that week. So it just allows you to kind of slow down and get back to the important things and the basics that really win football games.
As a former player and alum, what does homecoming mean to you?
We talked to the guys about it yesterday. I think, homecoming is for everybody else. When you're a part of the football team, it's everyone else comes back and they reminisce on the times that they had here and the things that they did and how big. College is a huge part of your life. It's really kind of the last. It's like the last dose of childhood before you hit reality, right? It's a huge part of your life. Most people meet their wives in college, and that's, they either end up moving back home or living where they went to college. That's the way that it works for most people. So I think homecoming's always special. And, we talk to our guys, it's not for us. We play a big role in making the 2023 homecoming memorable. And, we take pride in playing for the players who played before us, the people who've graduated from this school, and they come back and we know what they want to see on the field. Everybody wants to win on homecoming, and we have our hands full in that, and we take great pride in getting to go out there and represent our university. on the field, and we know that the game obviously is the most important part of this whole homecoming process. But for us, all the other stuff is for everybody else. Tell them this. You enjoy that when you come back and you're done playing. Right now our job is to find a way to win this game, and that's where our focus is.
Anything else?
Thanks.